I'm Amber. The silence in the room was deafening as I stared at the letter in my hand. It was a proposal from my mother-in-law, Diana, to transfer the house into joint ownership with my husband, Leo. The audacity of it all was overwhelming. How did I end up in this mess? My journey with Leo started on a bright note. I was a 32-year-old financial analyst at a well-known firm, Ascent Financial. I had worked hard for years, pulling countless all-nighters and sacrificing weekends to climb the corporate ladder. I remember those early days, gulping down coffee at my desk long after everyone had gone home, studying for certifications while Leo slept. I was building a life, a home, with my own two hands. Leo, on the other hand, was a freelance artist. He was incredibly talented, with a unique style that attracted a loyal clientele. I loved watching him work, the way his face lit up when he was in the zone. But his income was unpredictable. Some months he made more than me, while in others, he barely scraped by. I never minded covering the bills during the tough times. We had agreed early on that I would be the stable one, and he could pursue his creative freedom. I believed in him and our arrangement. Diana entered our lives like a storm. She was a 65-year-old widow from a wealthy family. Her father had been a successful businessman, and she was used to getting her way. She had platinum blonde hair that was always perfectly coiffed and wore expensive, scented perfume that filled the room long before she arrived. She had very strong opinions about everything, from the way I decorated the house to the food I cooked. For the first year and a half, her comments were small, like pinpricks. Amber, that color scheme in the living room is so outdated, or Leo is used to a higher quality of food. After each visit, I would feel a bit down, but I always brushed it off, thinking she was just being a mother. Leo would always say, "She's just like that. Don't take it personally." Then, one October, Diana announced that she would be moving in with us for a few weeks while her penthouse was being renovated. Leo told me just 2 days before her arrival, standing in the kitchen with his back to me, mumbling about a water leak and a contractor's tight schedule. I remember holding my coffee cup, feeling the warmth seep away. I asked how long, and he gave me that charming smile of his and said, 3 weeks, maybe 4, 5 at most. She ended up staying for 3.5 months. At first, I tried to be the perfect daughter-in-law. I cooked breakfast for the 3 of us every morning, even when the autumn mornings were cold and gray. I gave her the best guest room, the one with the most sunlight. I moved my books from the hallway because she said they were messy. I stopped using my favorite scented candles because she said the smell gave her a headache. But Diana took my concessions as a sign of weakness. She started rearranging the kitchen, moving the pots and pans around and organizing the spices in an order that only made sense to her. She would stay up late watching TV in the living room, and when I mentioned that we had early mornings, she would say, "I can't sleep in a strange place." Don't blame me. Around a month after she moved in, she started asking about our mortgage. She was always so casual, like she was just making small talk. "How many years do you have left on the loan? Or is it hard to sell a house with a mortgage?" Leo even mentioned one day that the house was in my name only. I told them it was true, as I had paid the $250,000 down payment from my savings and an inheritance from my grandfather. I started to feel uneasy. When I tried to talk to Leo about it, he told me I was overthinking. But at night, lying next to him, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. His quick, rehearsed answers made me suspicious. Then came the dinner party. Diana proposed gathering the family, and Leo agreed before I could even say a word. There were 8 guests, Leo's aunt, Clara, and her husband, his cousin, Victor, and his wife, Isabella, Diana's neighbor, Millie, and an old family friend, Henry. I spent the whole day cooking. I made a delicious roast chicken, a cheesy potato gratin, a fresh salad, and homemade bread that took hours to rise. I set the table with my grandmother's heirloom china and lit the candles. The house smelled like home. Diana came into the kitchen at 4 o'clock, arms crossed, looking around like an inspector. I thought Leo would help you. Where is he? I told her he was working. She just repeated, working? With that tone that was neither a question nor an agreement. The dinner went well for the first couple of hours. The guests were enjoying the food and chatting. Clara asked about my job, and I gave a brief answer. Victor asked about the garden, and I told him about the tulips I had planted. Henry was a quiet, pleasant man who mostly listened. Then, Clara asked Diana, "So, how are you finding it staying with them?" Diana's face lit up. "Oh, Clara, let me tell you. I'm so lucky with my son. My Leo is a real man. He supports that woman and pays all the bills in this house. I always said I raised him right." I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at Leo, and he was looking at his phone. Something inside me snapped. I put down my wine glass and said calmly, "I'm sorry, but I'd like to clarify something. This house is in my name. I pay the mortgage, the groceries, the utilities, everything. Diana, you're living on my money, not Leo's." The room went silent. Leo put his phone down and stared at the table. Diana's smile faded slowly, like a candle being snuffed out. She tried to play the victim, saying she didn't mean to hurt me, that she was just proud of her son. But I wasn't going to back down. I told her that she was spreading false information and that I wouldn't tolerate it. After the guests left, Leo and I had a heated argument. He tried to defend his mother, saying she was just an old woman who was proud of her son. But I knew it was more than that. I asked him who paid the mortgage, and he mumbled something about contributing, but I knew his contribution was minimal compared to mine. A few days later, Clara called me. She told me that Diana had been telling people for months that Leo was the real breadwinner and that I couldn't manage money. I knew then that Diana had been planning something. One night, while Leo was out and Diana was in her room, I walked into Leo's office. I didn't mean to snoop, but I found a folder under a stack of art magazines. On the spine, it said House Consultation. Inside, there were articles from a law firm about property division and hand-written notes in Leo's handwriting. He had been consulting a lawyer about how to claim a share of the house, and he had even considered using Diana as a witness. I was devastated. I called my friend, Maya, who is a no-nonsense kind of person. She told me to check my bank accounts immediately. The next morning, at the bank, I found out that $25,000 had been transferred from my account to Diana's 3 weeks ago. I was furious. I called a family lawyer, Mr. Thompson. He told me that the unauthorized transfer was a criminal matter and that the preliminary agreement Leo had been working on was unenforceable without my signature. Diana then sent me the letter proposing the joint ownership. I confronted Leo and Diana with all the evidence. Diana tried to lie, saying the transfer was a gift, but I knew the truth. I gave her 48 hours to leave my house. Diana left within 40 hours, muttering that I would regret it. But I didn't. The house felt quiet and peaceful after she was gone. It was a different kind of quiet, a quiet that belonged to me. Leo and I separated in the spring. It was a quiet, amicable separation. We divided what we could, and the house remained mine, just as it always should have been. Now, as I sit on the front steps, sipping my coffee and watching the tulips bloom, I realize that I've come out stronger. I've learned that I don't need to sacrifice myself to keep the peace. I'm capable, clear-eyed, and I'm here, standing on my own 2 feet.